4. Welcome to the Serendipity Institute, where we align the world of the spirit with the world of humans to allow transformation and growth at all levels. Serendipity is all about the careful alignment between opportunity and possibilities and the objectives and the needs and the desires of all of the participants within the educational programs that we offer. Educational programs are based on personal development, also community development, and in addition to that, the opportunity for enlightenment. The Foundations program is offered as a one-year intensive. It's delivered via the web and it's delivered in English and in German. The program is open to people from anywhere in the world, as well as it's being open to the spirit world. So the spirit world and humans are both equally welcome to enroll in the program. The information on how to enroll is to be found elsewhere on the page that this video is sitting inside of, and so we welcome you to inquire and find out more information about the program, how you would benefit, how it's delivered, how it all works, and we look forward to hearing from you. So thank you for watching. We live in a world which is jam-packed full of sentient creatures. When we talk about sentience, we normally think about humans, or perhaps we might think about animals. For some people, they might think about the planet itself as being sentient. And of course, all of these, in my estimation, are completely true and reasonable ways to actually look at the situation. So I may have actually just expanded your thoughts about what might be a sentient being and what I've just said there now, but there's a further expansion required for the purpose of this video, and that's to actually have a look at sentient beings which don't have bodies or don't have a physical structure at all. Hello and welcome, I'm Dougan, and in my clinical work I see clients all of the time who are presenting with issues which are related to their interrelationship with this non-physical sentient world. When you're doing this kind of work and you see so many examples of it, it's beholden upon you to actually try and work out what the needs are of this other world of sentient creatures or sentient beings, and indeed to actually find out what their nature is. So what their needs are, what their nature is. And I've made a study of this over the last few years, and what I'm going to talk to you about on this video relates to some of this research and these findings and these outcomes and understandings that I've had over the last few years. What I've found is that these entities or other sentient beings that we're talking about share or profit out of much of our mind level activity. So on their own, when they're actually operating on their own and they're not really associated with human beings, or for that matter animals that have been around human beings as well, then these sentient beings really are very, very foreign, very alien, very different to humans. They don't share very many commonalities with humans at all. With lots of association with humans, then these entities take on many of the aspects of humans, and the most prominent one of this is the ego. So this is the imaginary idea that one has of oneself. These entities actually assume parts or aspects of the egos of the people around whom they're actually hiding, or they're not hiding, around whom they are associating. Now I said I was going to talk about what their needs and their nature is, and the important thing that I really want to begin with is some of the delusions that surround their existence. So because they don't actually have much of the capacity that humans have, so humans have all kinds of capacity, and these entients or other sentient beings, however you want to describe them, they don't actually have these capacities that humans have. They have a range of what we would call delusions. So if I'm talking with my clients, I'd be talking about delusions, and these entities actually have delusions as well. And there's three critical delusions that I want to talk to you about now. The first one is that the only way that they can survive is by being around unconscious suffering. So when people become commonly aware of this sort of entity type of activity or other sentient being activity, then what they're normally experiencing in that time is a tremendous amount of unconscious suffering. Now this is a delusion that sits around the entities. The entities have this delusion that they need to be around unconscious suffering, that this is their area, this is their world, this is how they exist, this is how they thrive. So this is the number one delusion, the delusion that they can only thrive from being associated with unconscious suffering. The second major delusion, which has a tremendous breadth to it, is the delusion around needing certainty. So one of the characteristics of humans is that they can work and exist and thrive to an extent in an area of uncertainty. These entities, these other sentient beings, are actually only capable of living in a world of rules, a world of very much certainty. So everything has to be prescribed, everything has to be certain, everything has to be very predictable. So this is a very common delusion. In fact, it's a persistent delusion for these sentient beings which are not humans. The third major delusion that I want to talk about that the sentient beings, these entities, have is that they need to survive. So this is very, very powerful, because human beings know that they can change and they don't have to stay exactly as they are, whereas these entities have this delusion that they have to survive. They just have to persist, they have to continue, and that means continuing and persisting as they are. Part of what I'm doing with this video is I'm addressing this video directly to the entity world, so to this world of other sentient beings. For those of you who are familiar with my work, you'll understand that I always work with duality, so I'm working with a range of dualities relating to, under normal circumstances, a single delusionary concept. And in this case, of course, I've actually identified that there are three major delusions that we're working with here with these entities. So this is very complex work. However, we're addressing the entities, and we're going to talk to you entities now about these major dualities which support these three major delusions. So the first place I'm going to begin with is actually something which uses one of the terms that we had there for the second central delusion, and this is the delusion around certainty, that there has to be certainty. With all of this work with dualities, of course, what we're intending to do is to actually shine a light on the possibility for a much broader understanding and connection and communication with the full extent of these dualities. So we have, with the entities, we have the situation where certainty is something that they really, really get. So to you entities, you really understand certainty. What I want to talk to you about now and shine a light upon for you is the idea of possibilities. So at the other end of the duality, out of this end here is the end of certainty. What we've got is out at this other end here is we've actually got the process of possibilities. So to what extent are there possibilities? Now for you entities, you're really only capable of seeing this much, and this video is helping you to actually see that there's this other old life. There's another entirely different life, and this life centers around the world of possibilities. And so I'm offering you this opportunity to extend your bandwidth. The second major duality that I want to address here is the duality which really comes from the patriarchal type of system, and you entities, you actually work predominantly within the patriarchal system. Now there's another entire end to this duality, and the duality relates to the patriarchal and matriarchal. Now we're not really talking about that duality, although it is important for you. What we're talking about here now is the issue around scarcity. So we've got scarcity sitting in here as part of the patriarchal structure. We think of any patriarchal system, it's based on the holding of resources and the scarcity that comes from it. And this duality which sits around scarcity at this end here is extremely important. At the other end is abundance, where there is complete freedom, there's complete availability of everything. There's absolutely full and complete abundance. And I offer to you today this opportunity to see the full breadth of this bandwidth from scarcity to abundance. The third duality that I want to address to you today is the duality around consumption and creation. So the entities exist in a world of consumption. So they exist in a world where there's only the opportunity to consume. to absolutely consume. And for you entities, it has not been available to you, this opportunity to see all the way across to this other opportunity, which is creation. So I offer to you today the opportunity to see your way away from this end of this duality, which is all about consumption, and to see your way across to this other end of this duality, which is about creation. So take an opportunity now to actually see creation. The next duality I want to have a look at is the duality that begins at one place, or one pole of this duality for the entities, is the sense that everything has to be done step by step, so that everything that you're going to achieve is going to be step building upon step, building upon step. There is another opportunity. The other end of this duality, at this pole over here, is the opportunity of discontinuous or a dislocation of movement. So we have a step-by-step movement over here. Over here we can go from this place, no steps in between, and we can be at this place. So I offer you this information. I offer you the information, the bandwidth, the opportunity for you to actually be in a place where you can have discontinuous change without any steps in between. Part of the existence of an entity, or one of these non-physical beings that is a sentient being nonetheless, is that they exist outside of time and space. So you entities, you exist outside of time and space. When you exist outside of time and space, there are many things of a broadband or a bandwidth which are not available to you when you exist outside of time and space. And one of them is possibilities. Now, we've already talked about possibilities as being one of the duality ends that we're looking at, but this is a further or a different duality, and it relates between time and space, so the absence of time and space, and possibilities. So when you begin to interact with time and space, you will see that there's an opportunity for change, that there's an opportunity for things to be different. And so possibilities are sitting out at this other end of this duality. The next duality that I want to have a look at is the duality of nucleation at one side, so this is the bringing together of resources, and at the other side, at the other end of the duality, is the situation of releasing or dispersing. So in other words, that everything can be released, everything can be dispersed. Now, you entities operate almost entirely at the end of nucleation. So you're at this place where everything is being drawn together. This is your nature. What I'm offering to you here today is the opportunity to see this bandwidth, and in this bandwidth you can identify that there is an opportunity for dispersing, for releasing, for letting go. So I offer you this bandwidth. The next duality I want to talk about is a little bit more difficult to understand all the aspects of it. It is very subtle. However, it's a duality relating to violence on the one hand, and on the other hand freedom. Now, why it's subtle is that inside of freedom you have choice. The moment you have choice, or the exercising of choice, you have violence. So this duality is extremely subtle that we're talking about here. But for you entities, you exist entirely in a world of violence. So you sit inside the energy in the world of violence. This is the area where you sit under normal circumstances. What I'm offering to you here is the opportunity to see this aspect of violence out here, and how it differs, and how useful it would be for you to be able to see and experience the bandwidth all the way out here to freedom, where there is choice. Out here with freedom you have choice, which inevitably involves change, and once you have some change there is some violence because something is being broken down or something new is being created. Nonetheless, it's a completely different energy of violence to the violence over here where you have it at the moment. So I offer to you this bandwidth, the bandwidth between violence and freedom. The next duality I want to introduce to you is the duality around being locked in a cycle of suffering at this side. So this is where you entities actually exist predominantly, as you exist inside a cycle of suffering. And of course for you humans watching this as well, you are continuously locked in the cycle of suffering as well. And indeed, all of these dualities that we're talking about here, as I'm addressing the entities, apply to humans who are closely associated with entities as well. This goes without saying. So we're sitting here in the cycles of suffering over here, and this is the first aspect of this duality. The second aspect of this duality, which starts with the cycles of suffering, sits over here at the other end of this duality. The other pole is the pole of purpose. Now, for purpose, you have to have had many of these other duality poles available to you so that you can actually see and identify what your purpose is. With purpose, you can then begin to exercise some choice around the information that you have available to you. So I offer to you, entities, this duality between the cycles of suffering and purpose, to find out what your real purpose is and then to be able to act upon your purpose. The last duality I'm going to offer you here today is the duality sitting around sleep, or perhaps what people might describe as being a bit deeper than sleep. It might be to do with being completely dead or dead to opportunities or dead to subjects or that type of thing. But we've got sleep sitting out here on this side, and this is the world that you entities are existing in. You're existing out here and amongst this world of sleep. Because there is no time and space sitting out here, there is no opportunity for becoming awake. Out here on the other end of this duality is indeed the opportunity to wake up. So I offer to you this duality, these two poles of this duality. One is to be asleep, and the other end of this duality is to be awake. Another way of describing this would be to describe the opportunities of to birth or to rebirth, to describe this as being a state of realization. So I offer to you, entities, this bandwidth between being asleep and becoming awake and becoming realized. If you're a human and you're watching this YouTube video, or this video, wherever it is, it could be on my website or it could be on YouTube, however you're actually getting to see this video, what I urge you to do now is to take a couple of deep breaths. So big deep breaths in, and just acknowledge and recognize these dualities. Acknowledge and recognize how these dualities are available to you, and recognize just the opportunities that come from experiencing the full bandwidth of these dualities and the opportunity for the release from these three delusions. So thank you for watching. If you have any questions at all, make sure you make contact with me, and I look forward to serving you. Thank you very much.